Hi again, everybody. Welcome again to our weekly chat with Cobb County Commission Chairman Mike Boyce. And Chairman, we skipped a week because you were on what looked like to be an exhausting but satisfying trip.
Well, every year I take a mission trip to Romania. It's, as everyone knows, I've made my spiritual walk a very important part of being the chairman. And just a time to get away and do some hard work. In this case here, I was actually breaking down asphalt to put in a new patio. But every year it's something different. And it involves a couple towns in Romania that I've been doing now almost 5 years. So it's a long way to go to meet some really, really terrific people. And it's also, you get a real appreciation for what it is to be an American. All the incredible gifts and blessings we have as America. And also to see what America has done to provide that kind of opportunity and hope for other people in this world. Because Romania, as you know, 25 years ago was a communist country. And yet they've come an amazing long way in just that in one generation as far as developing a middle class, developing standards that we think would reflect our values. So it's a good trip, but it's good to be back.
And you're back, and reality hits very quickly. And again, it's pointing toward the budget and the challenges that we're going to be facing. And we just took some action concerning the Sewell Mill Library and Cultural Arts Center that you said it's kind of going to be a harbinger of things to come. Absolutely.
Well, as we all know, and I think Commissioner Weatherford hit it right on the head today. Look, what we did in July for the millage rate, it had an impact because it didn't allow me to bring some certain programs into the budget that I wanted to. But it wasn't the the reason for all the angst we're going through right now with the budget. This is just some small programs, but they're important programs. But the bottom line is, it'd be nice if we had everything we could put square blocks and square holes. But as we move along, there are some things that have to happen now, and we can't wait into the future. Because if we wait into the future, it brings a cost that we have to pay eventually. So as much as I wanted to wait until later in the fall to address the Sewell Mill Library, it had some both contractual and logistical aspects of it that I felt we needed to do now. If we didn't do them, then there would be some costs associated with it. And my line is, why would we want to spend money on things that don't go to furthering opening up that library? So again, I knew it was going to be a difficult discussion among the board, but again, we've had plenty of opportunity to talk about it. We aired our opinions. I think everyone had good reasons as to why they voted what they did, and we voted. Now we're going to move on. But again, this is all pointing to what we're going to be talking about at the end of October, because then I have to start putting together a budget based on 6.76. And I think it's important again to emphasize that because of the way we do business here, which is kind of weird, what we're going to be voting on next summer is actually to pay for all the bills that we started accumulating starting on 1 October. So I have to make sure that we do not get into the position where we did last year, where we spend more because we anticipated the tax digest and spent that tax digest, which did now allow us, if we had the opportunity, to roll it back to another rate. So that's one thing I got to focus on. But the second thing is I got to focus on 2019. So if we're going to be doing things that require more revenue than 6.76 brings in, the retreat is going to be focusing on those, and then we're going to construct the budget based on that. And then, as we've been talking about with you, we go on the road and tell the people, this is what we plan to budget in 2019, and what are your thoughts?
And you talked about the retreat. We're not retreating very far.
No. Right.
Just down the road to Austell.
Correct.
But coming out of that, you mentioned we want to have a direction. What do you envision going forward?
Well, listen, this is a 5-star county. And I've said on many occasions that we're not going to step backwards. We're going to continue the vision started with Ernest Barrett. It's the kind of county that we can safely work, play, recreate, and pursue our dreams. And the bottom line is, as I've been emphasizing also, that quality is not cheap, all right? So we can't cut corners. There are some essential services we have to provide, and more importantly, the community has come to expect us to provide. So we've already seen one example of what happens when there was a mere suggestion, all right? It was never a formal proposal, a mere suggestion, a thought that we might want to close a library to pay a bill. And we saw the reaction to that. So let's just take that across every single program that we're going to be considering in the 2019 budget, because every one of those programs has their constituencies. And I think that's why it's so important that this time we have a message that we take to the people as to what it is we're trying to do. And what I'm trying to do here is to continue to provide those services that support this five-star county, but also send a message to the outside world, because we have to have development here to continue to maintain this incredibly high standard of living that we have. We cannot stand still, because if you stand still, you die. You go backwards if you stand still. So both, I want to continue to provide the quality service so people who will still want to come here as their choice destination, but also send a signal to the outside world, hey, we want you to come here and we're going to support you because we have the best service provided anywhere in the Atlanta area.
And the problem that we always face is that when you talk about these constituencies, we don't usually hear from them until it's not really almost too late, but you know what I mean? It's
until it affects them.
Until it affects
them.
them.
That's the reality I've come to see is that, look, because the world today receives its messages from so many different sources, all right, we don't touch all those sources. So what happens is sometimes somebody doesn't realize they've been impacted until they personally feel that reality. And then they get upset about the fact that we're trying to do something that we didn't talk about. So what we're trying to do here, including why we brought you on board as new communications director, is we want to expand the universe that we're touching so people know what we're trying to do. And more importantly, not just tell them what we're trying to do, but get feedback like, nah, you don't want to do that. All right, that's why the town halls last summer were so important, is that I heard a constant message from people about why they didn't want to support the millage rate that I gave them, and the board heard that too. And I have to respond to that. But I have to also have an obligation to communicate to the voters, look, I get that you're watching that we spend every single tax dollar, all right? And I can assure you that we are now pulling all stops out, including things that we haven't done before, but should have done, to make sure that this time when we come out there, we're going to show you we have looked at every single corner of this government to create the most cost-effective and efficient government you can provide. But still, in order for us to maintain all those quality standards you expect, this is what the cost is going to be. And that's what this retreat is going to do. Is going to have a board say, okay, this is how we want to move forward on that, and this is what it's going to cost, and we're going to take that message out.
When you talk about looking at all the costs, I know staff and the police department, those I've been talking to, still putting together what the first season of the Braves cost us down at SunTrust.
Correct. Good point.
And you mentioned that you've been looking at ways to maybe offset some of those
Sure,
costs.
Absolutely. Well, what I found in this job in my 10 months is that if you don't ask somebody a question, they won't give you an answer. So what I tried to do with the parking issue was to throw a thought out there, all right? And first of all, it was that in my continued emphasis on open and transparency, I in fact have talked informally to the Braves about adding a small fee onto the parking ticket to offset the cost of providing public safety and what I call the Cone Brigade that support the Braves Stadium. And it came out of discussion in the news meeting with somebody, so it got out there. But in the process of doing that, Commissioner Rott, who has worked with the Braves because that's in his district, came back and says, "Look, I think I got another way to address finding resources to pay for public safety in the Cone Brigade, and I'd like you to let me work with that with the Braves." I said, "Okay, fine." So I think I told somebody that for now the $1 fee is off the table. What I meant was everything is still on the is still an option, but it is not the premier option right now. It's been set aside till Commissioner Ott goes and does his thing.
And one thing I've learned is, you talk about a moving target, the amount of development and business being generated down in that area is also having an effect on how much money is coming in.
That's correct. And I think that's one thing that we need to do a better job of communicating, is that first of all, the voters, well, I was elected because of the disaffection of the process in which we voted for money to spend money on the Braves. It wasn't about the Braves. I think everybody understands that by now. But there's still that concern is that we're using taxpayer money in this partnership, and they weren't sure about the magnitude of that amount. Well, now we're getting some definition on it, and I think it's very important that even though people may not like the fact that we're doing it, it's just as important that they know why they're upset, and we're giving them that, like, yes, it's going to cost us somewhere, around $8 million per year initially to fulfill this contractual obligation to come with this partnership. But in time, all right, as the battery builds out, as the Omni Hotel opens up, as the Comcast regional headquarters is filled in, as other development happens in the Cumberland Service District, the revenue we generate from property taxes and personal property taxes is going to zero out that taxpayer requirement to spend. And hopefully in the future, I'm not sure where, but in the future, it may even lead to the grounds for justifying a lower millage rate.
Right, and it could be sooner rather than later.
It could be, but I think, again, we got to let the taxpayers know, yes, you are paying for this. It is coming out of the taxpayers' side of the equation. But I'm optimistic, given what I've already seen with the Braves development in Battery Park and in the Cumberland Service District, we're going to collect the necessary revenue that we're going to take that burden off the taxpayer.
All right. Well, obviously a lot going on in the county. The chairman's back, so we will be back next week with more of what's going around in Cobb County. Until then, bye-bye.
All right, great.